Hey, there's a lot of golfers out there who wouldn't mind hitting the ball a little bit straighter. So right after this, I'm going to show you a move that I think might help you or assist you in getting the club face to be squarer at impact and making sure that you stay in the fairway more often. Now, this move is simple, easy to learn, and it works with every club in your bag. So if you're looking for straighter shots, less balls in the trees, and less penalty strokes, then by all means stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. I continue on my journey to hit the ball longer and straighter than ever before. If you share the same goal, I hope you'll join me. Hit like and subscribe. All right, so I've talked a lot on this channel about the impact zone and how it is to your advantage the closer you can get to bringing the club down on the correct arc with the club face square to that arc. That is our best chance of getting the club face to be consistently straight. In today's video, I'm going to talk about getting off to a good start. It's going to be hard to get this impact looking like this if your takeaway isn't similar. All right, so let's look at the last 90 degrees or so before impact that would be absolutely ideal, what the best players in the world are looking like. And then again, that is the club approaching the ball from the inside with the club face square to the arc. They come in the very last instant, the club squares up with the target line, they strike the ball, and then the club goes back around to the left like it's going around a clock. So I think the best way to trigger this is to do the reverse of what you're doing in the downswing. So if you're going to bring the club down in this way, and you figured out how to do this the way the best players in the world are bringing it into the ball, then all we'd like to do is simply reverse that in our takeaway. So we would want to draw the club back on an arc to the inside and low with the club face square to that arc. So here's an example of a club face that's not going back square to the arc, something like this, where I'm cranking it way open. And that is one of the big major errors that golfers will make, taking the club back. A lot of teachers are teaching that, and I find it problematic because if I'm going to open a door, then I've got to close the door again just right. It adds just another variable. So I'd just rather go square to the arc, square to the arc. Of course, that's going to make me look like this with the club face about 30 degrees down. Instead of toe up, I'm going to look a little bit more face like this. But that enables me to put the club in the same exact position that I would like to have it in as I come back into the ball again. So let's take a look at the best way that we can do this very consistently. Okay, so first of all, definitely want to make sure that the hips and the shoulders get square to our feet and on line with the target. And so that's a mistake that a lot of golfers I see in person make, particularly when they get the right shoulder a bit level and over the top like this. You can see how open my shoulder line is here. That's because I just didn't make any adjustment to fit the right side of my body on. I just go ahead and grip over the top and throw this right shoulder into the mix. This makes it very unnatural to take the club back on an arc, but makes it more natural to take the club to the outside and kind of lift it up in the air too high. And so getting back onto the ideal track coming into the ball is suddenly, you have to bend over backwards to reroute the swing in order to get it back on the correct path into the ball again. So that's one major error that I see. So instead of doing that, let's make sure that we line up with the feet and the shoulders more square to the feet, something like this. And this makes it much more natural of feeling to draw the club back on the arc, square to the arc. It almost becomes an automatic thing. Now, a second thing that is almost a must if we're going to get this club going back the first 2 to 3 feet on the correct arc, square to the arc, and that is the tilt of the hips and shoulders aligning up with the turn. So We need a little bit of a blend. It can't simply be just a turn only without a tilt. So even from a good address position, if I simply turn my shoulders horizontally like this, see, the club wants to now suck to the inside way too much. All of a sudden I'm way off the arc. So I've got my shoulders and hips turning on a merry-go-round plane. And of course, once I get here, I'm gonna have to do some rerouting again. Otherwise, the club might come back from that same angle and I might be approaching the ball too far from the inside. So instead of turning like a merry-go-round, we need to add a bit of Ferris wheel in there as well and balance the two out. Something like this. So once we're square, let's add a little bit of tilt to this. Rather than just a turn this way, we're going to have to add a little bit of tilt to the turn to get it to be on line or on plane, parallel to what we're trying to make the club head do. So something more like this. So I've got a little tilt to the hips and shoulders now. And now that club really wants to get back. Look at that, square to the arc, right on a nice arc. That's because I'm giving it a little bit of tilt right here rather than too much early turn. Now earlier I talked about another major error that people will make that they even get coached into, and that is they rotate the forearms this way and they really crank the club open. And that just means you're going to have to put back what you borrowed at the beginning. So it's easier to come back into the ball this way if you haven't borrowed anything against that in the backswing. Now it's very rare, but occasionally I do see students who actually crank the club closed like this going back. I do see this from time to time, so you want to make sure that you're not reverse rolling the forearms this way. I'm kind of doing this and this on the way back. It's making the club very closed, and that would make it really hard to prevent you from hooking the ball really badly. You'd have to then figure out how you're going to open the club face back up and make the wrists work the opposite way coming down into the ball to get everything to balance back out again. So one last major point in accomplishing this perfect takeaway is going to be what muscles that you use to take the club back. I think using the small muscles will be more inconsistent. If you can get the club back the first 2, 3, 4 feet, just using the big muscles that wind up the pivot and the trunk, I think it's almost automatic that the club will end up swinging square to the arc. So if you watch this for a second, I'm going to lock my arm and wrist in place here with this other arm. And watch as I'm just going to start winding the torso and the shoulder blades on the right tilt. And you see there's our takeaway right there we're trying to make. So that was just a simple rocking move of the shoulders and the hips. The knees are getting involved, the weight shift is getting involved, but from the shoulder, elbow, and wrist, they're not getting involved yet. And so this really eliminates a lot of different sources for error and makes that take-a-back really get to be simple and automatic. All right, let's see if I can demonstrate what I'm preaching here. Let's see if I can get this going back square to the arc. And there's a good straight shot right down the middle of the fairway. So you can see in the slow-mo, I'm taking that club back pretty square to the arc with the arc pretty much parallel to the intended line of flight when I get to first parallel here. Not only does this set me up mechanically to bring it back the way I want to, but it also kind of gives me a sneak preview. It's like if I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm kind of just in my mind reversing that last step and going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I've got the club moving through the impact zone, coming and going nicely square to the arc. So when you can eliminate errors in club path, and you can reduce the rate of closure of that club face, that's when you're going to have a real winning swing that hits the ball straight all day long, will drive your opponents and your buddies nuts. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I'm Steve, and as usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.